The PS2 has a vast library of video games. I'm trying to collect and beat them all. If you know me too well, that's my challenging goal. And while doing so, I get requests from people to play some of the bad games on the PS2. And I've beaten them, like Demon Summoner, Beverly Hills Cop, and of course the other infamous game many people talk about, Little Britain, the video game. The thing about these three games is, I can beat them in a day, maybe 2 days, laugh about them, forget about them, and go, yeah, whatever. They're cheap as a collector as well. They aren't that much money. You can buy them for cheap, have fun with them, and forget about them. When you're trying to beat a video game like me though, these are the worst PS2 games. You know my video about Unlimited Saga, I've talked about it before, and I absolutely despise it. Check it out if you want. But then there's games that have left a scar on me and will talk about and remember it all this time. And there's people that ask me, what are the worst games you've played? Games like this. World Championship Snooker 2002 has a brutal AI difficulty. I'm terrible at the game anyway, and when I'm trying to become the #1 seed in it, it's frustrating. But there are other games out there that I feel like, at least to beat, is a difference to playing. So I'm going to talk to you and share to you about some of the games so far that I think are the worst PS2 games. These are bad, don't get me wrong. But these, to beat, are worse. Let's talk about it. So let's address the elephant in the room, the reason I'm making this video. I want to talk about it more. We can go to Google right now and we can type out the worst PS2 games. And we are given loads of different sites that recommend and talk about the worst PS2 games. So we'll click on one of the first things that pops up for me, easily what everyone's going to do. I'll click on it and I'll start going through the list. And as you do, you start scrolling through ideas. Catwoman I've not played, Sopranos I've played, I'll talk about it maybe another time. And we keep going. American Idol, 25 to Life, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I know about Simpsons skateboarding, Fight Club, it goes on and on and on. The Shield, the video game, I think that's a really unfair thing. That's just my opinion. Another thing I'll talk about in another video maybe one day. But you keep on going down. Celebrity Deathmatch, Volleyball, don't know much about. Street Ver, and #1 on this one is Beverly Hills Cop. Yes, it's a bad game. I get it. But at the moment, all those games I've read, so far, I'm really not fazed by it. Let's go back again and use a different resource. Why not use IMDb? Is what some people probably use to talk to me about PS2 games while I'm beating them. #1, heaven forbid, it's Beverly Hills Cop. Again, we have Home Alone. Let's see what's the next game I've played that might pop up. Oh, Rise of the Machines. I played that. I'm very surprised that's up there. I can talk about that one as well. But above them, this is IMDb's top 20 PS2 games, and by the looks of it, I'm not fazed by any of them. That's why I wanted to really make this video, more than anything though. I look at lists about this myself, and I get asked all the time, what are your best PS2 games you've played so far? What are your worst? And I go through those lists, and I never see anything really that I'm fazed about or worried about. They're bad. I think the problem is a bad game looks bad and plays bad, but maybe can be beaten quickly and isn't so bad. We're in a world now that everyone emulates. So back in the day, yay, don't get me wrong, these are the worst games. You wouldn't have spent £40. You wouldn't have spent $40, $30 to buy these games, play them and hate them. But we're now in a retro scene for the PS2. Nearly, I'd say a good 90% of people will emulate all these bad games and play them anyway. What do you have to get out of it? What do you have to lose out of it? Probably nothing at all. You're just going to be playing the bad games because you've looked at a list online, laugh at it, play it for 10-20 minutes, move along, maybe even beat some of the bad games. But someone like me that's trying to archive, focus, and show off the PS2 library, some of these worst games are nothing compared to games that no one talks about or dare wants to actually beat. And this is why we're here today, and I'm talking to you guys that want to watch in the video to experience what are really the worst games on this system. So if we're going to start talking about what is on the worst people's games lists, let's talk about one of the most famous ones that everyone brings up, Little Britain the video game. Now, this game, yes, is a game of its time. There is content on this game that you look back on now and go, my god, we found this funny in the UK. We made a big comedy series about it. It's bad, it's terrible. Looking back on it now, we can say it's terrible. It is a terrible game. But why was this video game made? Because it was popular. Because it was a popular series at the time. Someone out there decided DVD sales are great. People are watching this on TV. Let's make a video game about it. And it is a bad video game, sure, but it is a short one at the same time. If you really don't know much about Little Britain, it is a very short game. It involves very few mini-games, and you go over several different mini-games, several different levels, and you're trying to beat them and earn a set amount of score points or goals in time to get to the very end of the levels. Some of the mini-games involved are completely random, don't make any sense, and kooky, and others are deserved rip-offs of classic arcade games that you've definitely played or at least seen once before in your life. There really isn't much to say about this game apart from it's just full of weird, cheap, really crappy minigames, and it, as you can see, I'm already about 3 hours in. And not only do I try and beat this game, but I actually even bother to 100% it and unlock the secret minigame that's on this. And yes, there is a secret minigame if you never knew about it. Very few people do know about it, funnily enough. The only other people that you would ever know that really showcased anything off about this game are two other PS2 challenge runners, Psych Plays PS2 and PS2 or Die. We found out and discovered that there is a secret minigame on this, Psyched being one of the first. And it's one of the only unique things about this game, really. It is a throwback to a pirate memory game joke in one of the episodes of Little Britain. Probably one of the only clever things about this game. But nonetheless, it's a short-lived experience. But at the end of the day, not only did I complete every challenge, unlock every minigame, and get a star on every stage, I 100%ed this damn game. For the lols, for the sake of beating it all, I did everything. I 100%ed Little Britain video game. Would I ever want to play it again? No, but I proved that you could beat it in a day, and it was over and done with. And that's exactly what I mean by worst PS2 games. I'm watching this back now, and I can easily, if you had to hold a gun against my head and force me to play this, I would not be breaking down in tears. I would not be like, oh my god, please, I don't want to play this game again ever in my life. Because it's easy. It's stupid. It's painful in content, maybe. But I could easily beat it again and again and again and again and be fine with it. At the end of the day, it's some graphic, stupid content that really should have been a video game. But I've played a hell of a lot worse. And another game that everyone talks about, it's the #1 worst game voted on 2 sites we saw, Beverly Hills Cop. Don't get me wrong, this game also sucks hard ass. It's a terrible game. From the get-go and till the bitter end, it is a pain in the butt. I think the problem with Beverly Hills Cop being the worst game ever, though, is that the first mission is a sneak mission, and it is programmed terribly. It is so bad with how easy you get caught, with how easy you have to keep doing the level over and over again, and it's what the first thing everyone plays, that is why it gets a really bad rap for being the worst game. Don't get me wrong, it's a terrible game, but to beat this game, it was just like anything else. It wasn't going to be that bad of a deal. You do spend the first level, though, working out the walk patterns of enemies, and you will get caught multiple times along the way. Because every time you get caught, it's a mission failed, and you have to restart the mission from the very beginning. But not only that, when you do get past the sneaking points on the first mission, the combat is also painfully painfully dull. You get shot to crap and you get destroyed. The first level, I was trying to survive from all the gangs of enemies. My bullets didn't seem to hit, and you kept failing as well. But while playing it, I discovered something that I could abuse, making the game an absolute cakewalk. For some reason, wherever you crouched, the enemies couldn't hit you. And it became one of the easiest, stupidest games ever. I could crawl around, avoid enemies, collect health, and constantly survive. The worst game ever became a laughable experience again. No longer was I getting shot to shit, no longer was I having to retry levels. I was crab walking and kicking the arse of everyone that was around. There are still some janky moments, and there's still some really annoying moments in this game, and I do have to go through and work things out. Even the last level can be a real pain in the arse, especially the final helicopter scene. At the very end of the final level, there is a helicopter, and you have to try and deal with it. I was shooting at it, I was trying to take it out, and nothing seemed to work. We're trying to prevent someone from running away, that is the whole point of the final level. But no matter what I did, no matter what I was doing, this helicopter would not get taken down, no matter how I approached it. And because of that, the person that would run away would always get away, and I would never be able to prevent him from doing so. Meaning I would have to do the level again and again. It was frustrating and annoying. Maybe there's some bad programming, but I'll just go and try again. And after multiple attempts, shooting at the living crap out of this helicopter, it can't have been that fucking simple. It just worked another time instead of the other time. What the fuck did I do? Whatever. You beat Beverly Hills Cop. Once again, it's a game that, well, if you crouch walk and get over the stupid, terrible programming and elements of the game, it's another game I beat in a day. It's a bad game, but it's a bad game. I could look back. I could even go back and play this one again. Honestly, maybe I could speedrun Beverly Hills Cop if I really felt like it, but I won't. I don't think. Who knows? Maybe I'm digging myself in a hole I shouldn't be here, but it's another quick beat. It's another thing I laugh at. It's another thing I go, oh my god, thank god I defeated it. Thank god I beat the game. But if you put me in a situation, would I have to force myself to play it again? I could. I could easily do this one again as well. Why this is number one on the worst, there are definitely reasons for it. But beating it, it would easily not be one of the top 10 worst games I've beaten in my challenge. And another quick one that was on the worst game lists we saw The Shield was on there. Now, I secretly love The Shield, the video game. Maybe because I've never seen the show, so I went in completely blind and not knowing anything about this game. The game is rough around the edges, it's jank, but it's such a meme-worthy, beautiful mess of a game that I feel like it really shouldn't be put on terrible games lists. I mean, one of the first opening moments of the game that really sold me was this.
Yeah. There's been an officer-involved shooting.
The Shield. What an opening. I honestly really want to make a full video about The Shield one day. I feel it gets a bad rap. It's another game that gets punished for, because everyone sees it on the worst PS2 games lists, it gets pooped on and memed on for being a bad game. Don't get me wrong, it's a bad game, but I find so much charming, janky goodness about it that I will give it the video it deserves. Maybe no one will watch it, maybe no one will view it, because I'm the only one that will want to put this game in a positive, funny limelight. But I really don't care. I speak from the heart about the games I've beaten in my challenge, and The Shield really is that. It's so stupidly funny and janky and over the top, but underneath it, the combat and the action in it is also pretty fun. And one day, you'll see a video about me talking about the shield. Once again, this game was beaten in a day. I beat it in under 6 hours. I even saw some unlockables. There were multiple endings. Yes, there's multiple endings to this game. I don't know why it gets a bad rap completely, but I'll let you know now. This will never be one of my top 5 worst PS2 games. Again, because it's a short-lived, terrible experience. As someone that's trying to beat games, time and time again, I'll tell you this one is fine. It definitely gets a low tier rating, it definitely gets a low rating. It's not one of the best games in the library, but playing it to its end, that's a completely different story. And one quick one, we saw it in one of the other lists, Rise of the Machines Terminator 3 was also on terrible games lists. I beat this one very recently. Actually, I beat it this year in 2025. And I can see, in a way, why some people might class this as a terrible game, but it is, at the end, just a generic shooter. All you really are doing is playing through the events of Terminator 3. You play in the future of the storyline to begin with, and it is a first-person shooter. You go through levels, take out enemies, take out Terminators, take out robots with all your high futuristic weapons, and unless it didn't have the Terminator name behind it, this game probably would be just, you know, futuristic shooter pew pew game. But it's not. They used the license, probably used an engine they had, and tried to sell a shooter experience to the masses. The levels are pretty generic, nothing really stands out, and it really is just a bland experience. But that's what I mean again. It's just bland, it's meh. It's not worst, it's not bad, it's just meh. Once again, I could go back and play this one again. I can see why people do mention this being bad, but it is just a very generic shooter that, sadly, a movie license is carrying it to the end. The objectives in some levels are dumb. Blow up police cars in the street to complete a level, and you're just constantly shooting your shotgun, peppering everything to destroy objects. It's weird. It's weird that it's like objective-based stuff, but, you know, it's scenes from the movie that they want to reenact a different way, and that's how they do it. And also, Arnie is also reprising his role as a Terminator with some incredibly phoned-in lines during all of the gameplay. And during the whole experience, one of the other things they love to show off is this weird Mortal Kombat battle system they decided to add as well, with really awkward mechanics and really awkward models. All the way till you get to the very end of the game and finally complete it.
Dance, baby! Die! Yes!
Oh. Once again, laughing all the way till the end, and then suddenly, once it's all said and done, I've beat the game in 4 hours. It's short, it's sweet, it's over and done with. And that is a showcase of the worst games, top terrible games, bad games, many other ways you could call them, and they're shown off on many different lists. I agree they are the worst games for lots of different reasons. They are very cheaply made, they lack content, they are terrible mechanically, they are terrible design-wise, they are cheap cash grabs. There are other games I haven't showcased or haven't got round to, mostly by publishers like Data Design and Phoenix Games, where they use the exact same gameplay format, make a different game, but just change the coat of paint, change the different way it plays. It's exactly the same game, but they just change the name, and it's still a terrible game. These are the worst games, but why I made this video. People ask me, Koos, what are the worst games I've played? The problem being a challenge runner and doing what I'm doing for this content is that I'm trying to get to the end of a game, or beat a game how the publisher, developer wants you to beat it, getting to the credits. And most of these bad, worst games, they are bad and short. They're quick cash grabs, there's not much content, so they're quickly beatable, and they are short-lived experiences. The worst games I'm about to tell you about, some are definitely short, terrible games anyway, and they're the worst, especially still on a design standpoint, but it's because they are grindy. They are both long, but in a sense have every element of a game design that you don't want to enjoy, and it being a rememberable thing that way. As I invest more time into something, it gets more grindy and bearing on you. I'm not trying to say that a long game is a bad game or a worse game. I mean, I would put RPGs maybe on that list, but RPGs have a various amount of content. They have cutscenes, story, dungeons, stuff like that to mix it up. Same thing with some of the sports and racing games. They can have long, huge career modes, but there's different tracks, different cars, different ways, different to mix it up. I'm very much prepared for the torches and pitchforks about my opinions going forward. I'm sorry that the worst games so far to some aren't the worst games to me. But this is going to be the worst games so far in my challenge that really have left a mark on me. And I hope you can all appreciate the opinions before then. It's why I'm doing this extra little bit of video in between to explain it all. These are the worst games for different reasons I'll explain. And please understand that, remember, as I said before, it's because I'm trying to beat these games. And when beating them, they really did a number on my anxiety, stressed me out, really put me and tested me to the point of when am I going to get to the end of this? Am I going to beat this? And thus forth. I hope you're ready, because I'm about to show you some of the worst games I've ever experienced in my challenge so far. So why don't I talk about one of the first games I ever played on this challenge, and still to this date is definitely one of my top 5 games I remember being really, really bad. The problem with Pacific Warriors 2 Dogfight is it is a Midas published game, but let's not try and judge Midas Publishings. They have published some okay games, but it is really a flight sim combat game that goes on for far too many missions that is exactly the same mission copy and pasted with a very mild slight variety, and has an issue with one particular mission that really, really ruined the entire playthrough of my challenge. I actually have a video talking about this specifically. I was doing a different video for each game in my challenge, and there is a video dedicated to this. But to save you wanting to go through that video, I would just quickly tell you exactly what I told you before. In that video, you do have to use different plane types to fly around on missions, and you can drop torpedoes, shoot people down with machine guns, and deal with both aerial units and naval units. The scenery and terrain, as you can see, is pretty lackluster. There isn't much textures. There may be a brief road and a building now and then, but it's mostly vast emptiness, vast blankness, while you're flying around and shooting plane after plane, boat after boat. With all the missions, though, playing through this, the one mission that really, really left a scar, and I'll always remember this game for it, is this one in particular, Red Sun over Midway. The basic mission breakdown sounds simple. We have 8 fighter planes, and we need to make sure that they survive while stopping waves of enemies coming towards us and trying to take out our base. we have to remember two things while doing this. One, that our base isn't destroyed while the wave of enemies come and attack us. And two, the other strict requirement is I can't lose over half the fighter planes that are flying with me. There are 8 fighters alive. So over half means I can't lose more than 5. Because let's do the maths quickly. There are 8 planes. Half is 4, 1 more is 5. So if I go down to fighters alive 3, I would imagine that means I've lost over half the planes. Anyway, that's what goes on here. We keep flying around and I have to keep defending the base. The biggest problem is that I was doing all the work. The planes that were helping me fight were really doing nothing at all. I'm flying around, I'm taking out all the planes, and I'm making sure the base isn't getting shot down. But while doing so, the other planes are chasing down the people I'm meant to be protecting. But then suddenly 4 die, and it's called out at the top there. More than half of our fighters were downed, you failed. Not really. Half of my fighters have been downed. I still had 1 more. I don't know if it was just explained differently, but it should really be just explained half of the fighters have been downed. So you can only lose 4. And as you can see, constantly it was happening again and again and again. Hour after hour, it kept on going. It was driving me insane, and I couldn't understand why. Restarting the mission constantly, I just didn't know what to do, and it was becoming unbelievably frustrating. This was on normal difficulty, by the way, and I'd already been invested about 3 hours in. I couldn't get past it. I didn't know what to do. Every time I tried something differently, the fighters were dying all the time. If I flew ahead and took out the planes and ignored the base, or if I kept focusing on other things, I kept approaching it differently, but every time either I was getting shot down or the fighters were getting shot down. So I started this mission 3 hours in, and obviously could not get past this wall of a mission. And nearly 2 hours in, after constantly losing, getting destroyed, I came to this decision. First 2 attempts. And now I can't get to, like, everyone now, all the AI now are splitting up, or I lose a load of health, or it's crazy. Right, I'm gonna do this 2 more times, and then, I'm gonna just start the campaign again, but put it on easy. This wall of a mission was so hard that I had to do the only other thing, possibly, as I just explained. I was going to restart the entire campaign. Like most of these 6th generation PS2 games, once you're on a difficulty, you're locked in. There's no way to lower it down. So I had to throw away my 5 hours of investment and try again on a new run. Would rookie difficulty help me get through and beat this level? It was the only way I was going to find out. Otherwise, I was just going to have to get good and eventually somehow beat this mission. And on the same mission, only about 2 hours in again... Oh, they killed him. Wow. What a fucking difference that was on that difficulty. I got past this roadblock, but couldn't believe the difference
They really screwed up on normal
difficulty. Now, believe it or not, the rest of the whole American campaign, or the campaign itself, goes quite well. I just go through different levels, and when you do complete the American campaign, you're given a glorious splash screen with a line of victory text, probably a quote as well from someone actually from the war, and that is that. It is a painful experience. It was a generic one. It is so bland that I finished it. However, I always give games credit even when credit's due, the credits didn't roll. There was another campaign, and yes, even though I hated this game, I had to, for archiving and challenge reasons, want to take on the Japanese campaign as well, but obviously kept the lower difficulty on to make sure things went well. The Japan storyline is exactly the same, basically has the same formula, except instead of being America, we are playing the other side, the other faction of this war, and doing the complete opposite. It's weird that you do have like a two sides of a story campaign going on, but it kind of makes sense as well. There were two people involved in this war, so we fight both sides of the war. Still, it is the same concept. Bland, boring, open areas that show nothing at all, bombing and destroying buildings, shooting planes, and slowly getting through mission after mission after mission. The last final mission, I guess, is a little bit different compared to the others though. You, as a Japanese warfighter, was captured by the Americans. You, as a final mission for this campaign, have escaped, stolen one of the American planes, and are trying to fly back to your fleet of subs to get asked for help, get picked up by them, and get out of the area. You've lost the war, you're trying to escape from enemy fire. The unique thing about this is you're trying to fly around and survive. You're playing as an American, and your rules on this challenge are not to shoot down the Japanese planes while you are trying to get comms with the Japanese boats, and eventually get identified and be picked up. It is one of the only real unique missions of this, besides all the blowing up planes, shooting up planes, destroying bases, blowing up boats. There are 50 missions in this game, and they all, as I said, play the same, and it grinds and gets boring. Unlike the worst games I talked about earlier on in the video that are on lists, this is basically the same thing, rinse and repeat over and over and over again. Very little redeeming about it. The soundtrack is the same music is played, the same models are the same. It all felt samey, boring, and repetitive. Maybe I shouldn't have done both campaigns, but like I said before, for the sake of my challenge, unless credits already rolled and I could be happy with it, I had to keep going. And when I did finally beat all 50 missions, you'll finally hear... This was very early on in my challenge, remember?
I am in slight pain. This is
how...
This has worn its welcome.
I felt about this game.
Yes! It's over! It's over! Stop the timer! Stop the timer!
As said, this is the reason for one of the worst games for me. Still is. One of the first I've ever played, is still going to be 200 plus games in. It made it to one of my top 5. It really, really is an unbelievable grind of generic, of pain, of suffering. One of the reasons being, it was already a bad game in design anyway, with the lackluster stuff going on, but the fact that you make a mission so impossible for me to beat that I had the lower difficulty is another reason why I always remember this game. Trying to beat it was a true struggle. If someone wants to try and prove me wrong, please do. You probably could pull it off. Try and beat that mission I was stuck on normal difficulty, and prove that I was terrible at this game and didn't do very well. Still, to me, it was done. I could wipe my mouth with it, and I was happy. This is one of the worst games I've played, and I really wouldn't want anyone to really play it. One of the next worst games I want to talk about is Fighting Angels. I know what you're about to say. How dare you pick on a simple 2000 game and call it one of the worst games? They were budget titles anyway, Koos, and there's reasons for it. The problem is that Fighting Angels really is incredibly bare bones, And just because it's a short game doesn't mean it's gonna be one of my top 5 worst games. This really is an incredibly unbelievable excuse for a fighting game. Fighting Angels has one real big selling point about it. It's girls fighting each other in bikinis. The problem is, the fighting is very, very basic, lackluster, and bare bones. The goal of the game is to try and knock your opponent out while being dressed scantily, and if you can build up the heart bars at the bottom, you can do some special moves. At the end of the day, it's whoever can win first by knocking the other player out. One of the reasons, though, that it really is the worst game ever is that with a fighting game in particular, you'd expect that with multiple characters, you know, every character has something different about them, something unique, something fun, something interesting. The problem with Fighting Angels is every character, apart from looking slightly different, wearing slightly different bikinis, having slightly different models and shapes to them, all play the same. One of the biggest things, though, about a fighting game is that you want to be able to play and fight with the different characters available. In my challenge, that's what I'm going to be doing. In a fighting game, will play with every unique fighter and get to their end mission, their final cutscene, or their final goal. The problem with Fighting Angels is that it's a mirror match against mirror match. Every character fights the same. There is no difference. Everyone has the same special, the same grabs, the same attacks. There are a few weapons in between matches to make it feel slightly different. But apart from that, no one is unique. No one is special. Everyone does the exact same thing, and it is a real shame that I don't want to judge a Simple 2000 game, but this game was localized in PAL, which is another reason why I really can't give it the benefit of the doubt. 505 Games decided to publish this game, and for a game as it is, it plays exactly the same no matter who you play as. It's why, just because a game is short, I should give it a chance and not being one of the worst games, is not the example here for this fighting game. I beat this game in under 30 minutes. Yes, I get a credit roll, and I can't believe it. It finishes before it even starts, and usually I don't stop a timer after beating a game with one character. But as I looked into the other characters, I realized they all played the same. There was no point. There was no final cutscene. There was nothing different about it. If you beat a game with another character, you unlock a costume. And that was it. There is a cheat code, though, in the game to unlock all characters and all costumes. There is only one secret character anyway. And then, apart from that, I unlocked all the costumes and called it that. The only other thing I did to wrap things up was to look at the questionable character profiles that the game decided to localize. And in some cases, really questionable bios were localized for the game.
Kind of reliable, like her older brother. Okay, interesting. Favorite place to video arcade? She's a gamer. Mizuzu is a rather shy girl, but in spite of herself, she knows a school for her full figure. She is known at school for her full figure, and boys are always staring at her. Lately, her beauty seems to be attracting her girlfriends. Gazes as well. Not to mention her teachers, who during lessons sometimes stop to stare at her breasts. What? This is... yeah, kind of the stuff you don't really see now. Very anime, very Japanese-centric kind of concept for some characters. But there really was nothing more to this game. I'm not going to let every game get away with it just because it's a short game and something that, because it's short, means it's not a bad game. But Fighting Angels really was one of the top 5 bad games I've played.
It is a real sad excuse of a fighter. I would maybe slightly let it get away with it if it wasn't for the fact that everyone fights the same, but they don't. They all are basically the same fighters, no matter who you pick, who you choose. Sorry, Simple 2000 guys, I can't let you off. And 505 Games, there were some other great Simple 2000 games you could have localized, and I think because of Booba, you thought this would be one, and I sadly can't agree with you. It really is one of the worst games I've experienced in my challenge so far. Ah, boy. I talked about it at the beginning of the video. I'm gonna talk about it now. World Championship Snooker 2002. This was probably and still is one of the most stressful and absolutely depressing games I've ever played in my challenge. If you've never heard about Snooker, never watched Snooker, or never played Snooker, it is a very unique billiard-based game. The whole concept behind Snooker, if you never want to understand it again, the basics is you need to pot every red ball and then every coloured ball. But the gameplay loop or the strategy behind the real game of Snooker is you have to hit a red ball, then pot a coloured ball, then pot a red ball, then pot a coloured ball. Ball after ball after ball. It's basically like a game of tennis. Pot a red, pot a colour. Pot a red, pot a colour. But there is strategy behind this game. You have to make sure that your ball positioning is in the right spot so that you always are ready to pot the next red, then pot the next colour. The issue I had with this game was not only the requirement to beat it, but the sheer difficulty behind it. The main goal, at least in the manual when I opened it for World Championship Snooker, was you have to become the world #1 seed. Basically, the top of the top, the king of kings, the person that has beaten everyone else and has achieved greatness amongst snooker champions. That meant I was going to need to go through multiple tournaments and earn money and rank up through these tournaments to be proof enough that I was the #1 snooker player. But the game is hard. You might look at this now, there's guidelines and there's way to know where the ball goes, where it travels. But it was unbelievably stressful. The game at the beginning is fine. There is no difficulty setting, by the way. It is one difficulty when you start this up. All I have to go against me is my own skill, while the AI tries their best to prevent me from winning a match in every snooker game. Don't get me wrong, there are times where I feel like I've completely achieved all against odds and squeeze a victory barely by points.
Oh. Nice spot on the black there.
But most of the time, every shot was just another shot that was giving me anxiety, stressing me out, and if I effed up, it was going to cost me the match.
Please go in, please go in, please go in, please go in, please go in.
14.
Go in, 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 go in.
But most of the time,
For the Raiders, for the Raiders, for the Raiders. No!
it was nothing but pain and suffering.
It's over. Oh, we tried so hard for this one. Oh.
Especially sometimes when you were doing so well in a match, when I was pretty good points ahead, as you can see here, 39-4, the AI would just come in and absolutely break my heart.
Could be game. Could be game. Black is luckily stuck a little bit. There's 2 reds on the cushion as well, which I think actually there's 3 reds on the cushion. So the AI might not know what to do with the reds that are just stuck on the cushion. Yeah, he's going to free the black. He's got 2 more reds to easily move about. The 2 reds on the right there, he'll move them about and use them. Pot the black again. Another easy cut with the black. Now pot the other red. But then he's going to try and snooker me with all the reds that are stuck on the cushion. He'll pot the black again. And then snooker me. Oh no! What a play! Holy shit, he's still going. He's still going. He's still going, never mind. He's still going. That was a fucking play. That was a play. Oh, I think he'll pot that red there as well on the cushion. This is... I mean, it can be done. I've done it.
Fuck. 44.
Oh, but I wasn't going to roll in. Play. What a fucking play. Oh, that's heartbreaking. This was mine. This was mine. This was mine, and I lost it. What a fucking shame. I was so close. This is what I mean by the AI. Fuck up a shot and you've lost.
Now, I get it. To the snooker fans, this is how snooker is. I get that completely. Going in, playing a snooker simulator game, probably anyone who knows snooker, plays snooker, goes, Koos, this is how snooker goes. I'm sorry to say, you can easily miss one shot and GG, you've lost the match. I get that. The fact that this game had no difficulty setting, or even a retry shot, or maybe a way to like there's 3 mulligans you could do. Like if you miss a shot, there's a way to rewind it and try again. I wish there was some, at least not in this one in 2002, there was nothing of that. And every time something happened like that, I was getting so stressed, heartbroken, and it was a pain. It really was heartbreaking. I do soldier on though, and I do get to the final round and tournaments of World Championship Snooker. It is a long one though. This one was incredibly long. It just under 50 hours, I do eventually get to the end of this game and finally beat it and become the world #1 seed. And look, once again, I get it. I think what some people are going to say is, Koos, you can't unfairly judge a game. It's a sports game. These games are meant to be played in short bursts, not in a back-to-back marathon game like you've done and constantly play. You're meant to come back to it, play a couple of matches and do so again. Even if I did that, if I stopped playing this, I wouldn't want to come back to it. Even when I try to express myself, my brain gets some PTSD over this. It's stressful. It was upsetting. I've never felt so upset and depressed while playing this game. I felt so crap while doing this. I felt like I was a terrible player. I never felt like I was getting good. Some of my games near the end, I felt better from it, and I felt like I was doing okay. But my whole time playing this particular sports title was so depressing. This forever will be one of the top 5 worst games for me, and probably is one of the only real sports games I can really list in my top 5. So people that have a hatred towards sports titles, just remember this. This is the only sports one that really makes it in my top 5, because just of how much skill required was needed for it, but how upsetting the whole time my experience was from this. Sorry to the snooker fans and the people that play the snooker sims out there. This one for me was truly a worst experience for me. To beat it and get to the #1 seed, I really hope that the other ones, there are about another 10 snooker games on the PS2 still. I just hope that there's a bit of a difficulty or a bit more fairness when I get round to these other titles. Ecco the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. This one is in my top 5 worst games because of a load of different reasons. One, it's from a company that are quite prolific, Saga. 2, it's a licensed game and a name that is set in stone. Something that, if you're going to use the name of a company, if you're going to use the name of a mascot, especially when you're a video game company, you need to do something good with it. You need to make sure that it's something enjoyable by others. Movie licensed games and everything that has its own real shovelwareness about it, be it like an IP like Bob the Builder, Postman Pat, Terminator that we've used in this video, for example. You're using that to help carry a game because it's by the masses, supported by the masses, and it's that way in a bad game. Ecco the Dolphin, though, I'm putting in one of my top 5s because it should have done better, it should have known better, and it does so many gaming mistakes that we hate as gamers that causes this to be a super frustrating, super painfully annoying, and above all, one of my top 5 hated games because it's so frustrating that they could have done better. I will give Ecco the Dolphin one thing going for it. It has the legendary Tom Baker narrating this batshit crazy storyline.
For 500 years, dolphins and humans had lived together in unity, harmony, and fellowship.
Wait, hold on. Is this Tom Baker?
Together, they set out to explore the great unknown. Peace and friendship were offered to all who would welcome it. But there were forces for whom aggression was the highest calling. Creatures known only as the foe regarded the earth with envious eyes.
Wow, what an intro to a game.
For
What
humans
the heck?
and dolphins were their hated enemy. From time beyond memory, the foe had gone undefeated. They devoured, dominated, and annihilated all in their path. But humans and dolphins brought their age of conquest to an end. Driven to the brink of defeat, the foe plotted vengeance on Earth. But the few caretaker dolphins who remained behind
Caretaker
were not
Godolphins.
defenseless. Protected by their greatest creation, the Guardian shielded them with its immense power. Undeterred,
Wow.
the foe persisted, seeking a moment of weakness.
I mean, aliens being a normal plot or not, what an intro to a game I did not expect.
And in this time of crisis lived a young dolphin named Ecco. He was destined to become the only hope for humans and dolphins. Ecco, defender of Earth's future.
Holy. Wow.
So, Ecco the Dolphin with that absolute batshit crazy opening, by which I was told most Ecco games have these kind of weird storylines. Once again, I'm going into these games sometimes not knowing anything about it, especially with the Ecco franchise. I knew nothing about it. Is a very much adventure game, but with complete swimming mechanics. I will give the game credit
The swim mechanics are actually okay. A little bit disorienting maybe, so be careful if you do ever want to play this game. But you go around and you're trying to defend the future. You go and do some crazy missions and levels, trying to solve puzzles and explore different aspects of the sea while doing so. Apart from how beautiful and visually looking the game is, I think the underwater looks really nice in this game, don't get me wrong. One of its first real problems is Ecco the Dolphin is insanely cryptic. There are levels that you'll be going through where you can talk and interact with other dolphin and other creatures to give you hints on how to get through to the next stages of the game. But honestly, it is unbelievable like how cryptic it can be. There are puzzles that you'll have to go and work out, and the solutions are quite maddening. Along the way, as I said, one of the early levels in Ecco is talking to another dolphin. It tells you how to get past what you're preventing you from completing a level, a crafty octopus. He starts talking about that there's secrets in caves, there's a manta ray that will help you become a friend, and he will teach you how to talk and speak to a manta ray if you find the fish it so desires. What this then leads to is me going through corridors and labyrinthian tunnels trying to find all the solutions to this puzzle, trying to find the fish without really getting led where to go. After delivering the fish, being taught the song and having to find in a labyrinthian style of tunnels where this manta ray is even. Eventually finding the manta ray, leading it through awkward labyrinthian tunnels that we were just already trying to get through ourselves. And then with the power of the manta ray, I'm able to use it as a protective barrier without getting eaten by a giant eel and beat the stage. This is just one of the weird solutions that you need to do in order to beat Ecco the Dolphin. Like I said, it is an incredibly cryptic game. I didn't use a guide through this, but it was baffling that even back then without guides, you had to work this out yourself. It was so freaking confusing, and I couldn't believe it was what it is. And as you go further into the game, the level design is so confusing and so... I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's so easy to get lost in this game. Everything looks the same, everything feels the same. Labyrinthian tunnels that go from level to area. Sometimes the game can look beautiful, and other times it's just repetitive, weird, open, empty rooms. But then it is just clunky in other ways. There are puzzles that you need to do while swimming underwater. Awkward block moving puzzles that you're constantly using your swimming abilities to move around and tell movable machinery to do other puzzles as well. I wish there was a way you could just do this by clicking up and down, but no, they thought it was way more fun and interactable by swimming around awkwardly and solving puzzles by pausing, stopping, starting, pausing, stopping, starting to solve another puzzle in the game as well. This game does cause many different sins in video game design though. How about awkward platforming? Did you know this game had it? Well, it does, because not only is it an action-adventure swimming game, but it also has some of the most frustrating platforming sections near the end as well. I don't know if they thought it was a clever idea, but you are jumping from bubbles and jet streams to try and actually get through to the end. This isn't optional, by the way. You have to do these awkward, annoying sections to carry on with the game. But not only just bubbles, but awkwardly jumping between tubes of jet streams of water as well. All of this is unbelievable. It's so annoying. You're fighting the game and its controls and its swimming mechanics, trying to get into these hovering tubes and other areas of the game which you need to progress in. And at the same time, also blending in awkward, really clunky boss fights when you're trying to swim
not get disoriented and do the only attack that Ecco really can do, which is nose bump into enemies, and work out what the game wants you to do with the nose bump attacks that Ecco has at his disposal. And then there are other issues in particular where the devs have hidden very particular power-ups on a level that are crucial to completing the stages. So sometimes you are swimming blindly, working out where to go, and having to find that very particular power-up in these awkward, clunky hallways where sometimes enemies are grabbing you, attacking you, and slowing you down, and trying to get to these power-ups because you need to get and beat the game. As you can see here, because of the design of the areas though, you can get stuck so many times and you are struggling to move. Also, by the way, remember, dolphins can't breathe underwater. There is an oxygen bar that you have to maintain. So having to constantly collect bubbles and jumping out of water and making sure you come up for air is also important as well. Otherwise, Ecco will die. These are all mechanics, I get it. They're trying to simulate you being a dolphin. They're trying to simulate you swimming. But, my goodness, what annoying and stressful game it was. With the powers that be though, the grand finale is Ecco the Dolphin burrowing himself inside an alien and giving him a heart attack. Yes, this is the final boss. You are nose bonking a giant alien heart and making sure that he never exists again. But with that, I had beaten Ecco the Dolphin. This game is incredible. Play it yourself if you want. It was on Dreamcast as well as the PS2. But my goodness, what a sinful game this is with the multiple things it does wrong to make it a video game. There are definitely shovelware games and everything else that do the same. But this is an adventure game from quite a prolific developer, like I said before. It's insane. There are so many hidden mechanics. There are so many annoying things. You'd have thought they'd done better. Also, with the Dreamcast game that already came out, you'd have thought maybe they fixed some things. But no, they just decided to port on the PS2 and put us through suffering. Ecco the Dolphin is a pretty rough game, and I honestly wouldn't recommend anyone playing it because it really isn't worth your time. And of course, one of my final worst 5 games I've played so far has to be, if you've seen my video, you already know this was going to come up, Unlimited Saga. If there was a bad RPG I've played in my entire life, let alone this challenge, this takes the cake. I've talked about it a lot deep down about this game, and it is just unbelievably painful beyond belief. Not only is the mechanics, the gameplay loop, the ways to beat this game. There are 7 characters. If you didn't know about Unlimited Saga, you have to beat the game with all 7 characters to complete this game and get credits. There's a lot of time, a lot of investment, and a lot of gameplay you need to do to get to the end of the game. On top of all the cryptic gameplay guides, you need to really look online and understand what this game's about, how to craft, how to level, how to learn skills, how to survive battles. This game has one of the most hardest story bosses I've ever faced in an RPG. It's on the levels of super boss levels of difficulty and stress. Honestly, if you really want a full deep dive about this game in particular, please check out my video if you haven't already done so. There's a reason I talked about this and a reason why it has left a deep, deep mark on my life. For an RPG standpoint, it is an epic length of a game. Over, as you can see here, 180 hours of gameplay. Don't get me wrong, like I said, long games can be fine, but this game is, the reason it's so long is because you're doing the exact same RPG story pretty much times 7. The characters all play the same, you meet a lot of the party members that are the same, the combat's all the same, you do and follow the exact same meta once you know how to play this game, and it's just not worth your time, investment, and if you really did get to the end of it, you really question the time you invested. To the point where I did finally get to those credits, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked and I was blessed at the same time. This honestly really is one of the worst RPGs I've played.
I've heard about other games. Like I said, when we go further into this challenge, I'll be making more worst games I've played part 2, part 3, part 4. I know games called Chaos Wars. They're infamous for the bad voice acting. Maybe that will be up there on the worst RPGs I've played. Who knows? One day I'll find out. Until then, it's all a big mystery to me. But these are 5 games, all of different genres. You've got a sports game, you've got an adventure game, you've got a RPG, and you've got some other titles in between, just to let you know that it's not just one genre that was a worst title for me. I gave everything a chance, but these 5 in particular are insanely the worst of the worst, and I would never want to replay them again, or really ever want anyone to be recommended them or forced to play them themselves. So there are my top 5 worst PS2 games. There they are. That's exactly the ones, all different reasons why beating them either felt empty, like fighting angels, or stressful and depressing, like Snooker, or just everything that was wrong in video game design, Ecco the Dolphin, RPG, a flagship company of RPG epics, bringing out something that is just absolutely, unbelievably a mishmash of confusion and obscurity and confusion. And then obviously you do have, to top it off, the flight sim game I included, that is Pacific Warriors. With that game in particular, bare bones, absolutely nothing to it, rinse repeat, also frustrating difficulty spikes that I literally couldn't get past, so that was it. There are some honourable mentions I could say too, as well, some being a game in particular. One is called the Ultimate Sports Quiz. Ultimate Sports Quiz had a vast array of sports, and with my challenge I was saying 2 rules. 1, try not to use Google to cheat, which I did. As you can see, I'm already over 20 hours in nearly with this. But 2, only rely on help from others if they too weren't Googling or using cheats to help me out. If I got them in a Discord call, I'd allow that as well, maybe, to get through this. The problem with Ultimate Sports Quiz is the questions are absolutely obscure that if you were an expert, I don't even think you know the answers to. There were questions about Olympics. There was even obscure questions that you might have known about the netball and how many people are in that team. But did you know which country won exactly 10 gold medals, placed 3rd in 2002 Winter Olympics? Did you know the nationality of a figure skater, Jan Hoffman? Or who at the 1976 Olympic Games in Montreal won gold in the long jump but male? All these questions were honestly incredibly overwhelming for me. I'm not a sports guy anyway, but these questions were just absolutely god-awfully confusing. Not only that, when I chose a wrong answer, it never told you the right answer, so I wasn't ever learning. If the question ever came up again, I wouldn't know what the true answer was. If it came up, I'd have to pick one of the other answers I didn't pick before. After an insane amount of attempts, after not using Google and relying on my own wits, I do eventually beat the game. The whole problem with this game was you had 3 lives and 3 50-50s. To get to the end of an entire question round and survive with your lives remaining. That was my beat goal, and I finally did it after so long. Nearing the end of my runs, or during the middle of it, you can see me pausing the game and doing something on the camera. What is it that I'm doing? I'm writing down answers to the questions so I can pause, and if they come up again, look up the correct answers and get it right the next time. The reason for this whole question sport challenge taking so long was having to re-look at the answers I did know and eventually achieving victory. It may be a long time ago, but I still have my questions I wrote down saved like it's an insanity piece of work. Stuff like football, all listed down, all the answers written for football, and athletics, Like, there's questions about people dying athletics. I've written all that down, the dates and everything like that. People that won chess. This is it. Insanity papers. This challenge, this game in particular, made me go insane. I wrote all these questions down on the paper to beat a game. Sometimes it's mad what I do to beat these games, but as an honorable mention, why not bring up the Ultimate Sports Quiz? It was another one that I beat eventually, but will always remember it because of the lengths I went to beat the game. But there you go. People asked for it, and I wanted to make a video about it. There will be more like this. I will definitely be making a video about the top 5 PS2 games I've played so far. They're the most common questions I get while streaming, in videos, and everything else in between. I don't really give a rating system while beating my games, but there are definitely games that left an impression. That's why I want to do this video right now, to express exactly some of the top games that drove me to breaking point and question this exact task I'm doing to myself. Hopefully you agree to some of them, maybe you don't, but this is at the end of the day what I felt like. I'm just reviewing or openly telling you, my viewers itself, what I found to be the worst to beat. Remember that one more time, to beat the games. That's the whole point of this video, to explain that reason. There are definitely bad games I've played, but they just missed the mark. Same with good top tier games. There are definitely some games I would want to give that S tier, but there are just a few minor things that miss the mark. Either way, I hope you enjoyed what was the madness of me explaining to you what were the worst of the worst I've done so far. There will be more. I will explain more as we go further into the hundreds of games. There's gonna be more terrible games. And until then, let's see what can drive me into the next point of near insanity. Nonetheless, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please comment and agree, disagree, or stab me with your spears and burn me to the stake if you need to. I'm ready for it, and I understand when I make a video like this. And until then, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos.